Short and sweet, all good.
So whenever you're ready, hit it.
This is Dr. Josh Wagner from drjoshwagner.com, and you are listening to Vroom, Vroom, Veer with Jeff Smith. Enjoy.
Well done, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to hit stop. I'll be right back.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Danni Pomplun. I hope I got that right. Thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going really well. I cannot complain. I mean, I could complain, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, whining sucks. So let's not do it. All right. Good to hear. Good to hear. So, thank you for being here. And I appreciate you hanging out with me for about an hour or so, maybe a little bit less. Tell me a little bit about what you're most excited about over there at DanniPomplun.com.
I mean, that's just such a loaded question. There's
it is.
So much. There's so,
so much going on.
So much happening all the time. I think probably the biggest thing that I'm really excited about right now is I've got 2 retreats. One of them is going to be in Mexico over New Year's.
Wow. Oh, that sounds like a blast.
Yeah, it's going to be it's a meditation and yoga retreat. So I'm pretty excited about that. We're going to work on some goal setting and some releasing of, last year's bull crap and kind of manifesting all the things that we want to bring into the new year. It's like always, I know we're only like halfway through the year, but it's something that I look forward to because the people that come on this retreat are always really excited about,
exhaling the bullshit. Yes.
Exact 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
And we breathe bullshit all day. So we definitely need to get it out.
Oh my God, we're so attached to our stories. We love it. We love rerunning the script in our heads over and over and over again.
Yes, it's good. It's good when you can start exercising a little control over that.
Yeah, and that's why we do meditation and yoga.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that sounds like a blast. Where in Mexico? In one of the big resorts, or
it'll be down in Todos Santos, which is the southern tip of Baja California.
Beautiful. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It's a pretty cool space. I was there last year and I just loved it and people fell in love with it. And so we're pretty excited to be going back.
Like right on the water, sounds like?
Right on the water.
Right on the water.
Yeah.
Now, say the name of that place again so I can look it up.
It's called Todos Santos, or All the Saints.
Wow, Todos Santos. Okay. Now
Todos Santos.
Everybody can go look it up and I'll link to it in the show notes. And if you have a link, for your event, let me know and I'll put a link in the show notes because that just sounds amazing.
Perfect.
Who wouldn't want to go spend you want to get out of town for the holidays anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah. So beach in Mexico doing yoga and meditation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I
Sounds
could be down
terrible.
for a little. Yeah, right. Sounds awful. Okay. So that does sound exciting. So good for you. So this is Vroom Vroom Veer. I don't know if you know what you signed up for. A lot of people don't. But what we do here is we do a little bit of This Is Your Life show. So let's go back in time and talk about some of your story, wherever you want to start. So let's just start with, where did you grow up?
I was originally born. That's
a good one. I like that. Originally born. Then
I was born in East LA, like the song. I don't know the Cheech and Chong song.
I do know that song. Yes.
And I grew up there till I was about 16, and then actually about 18, I grew up all over LA, and then I lived in San Diego for about 10 years, and then I've been living in San Francisco for going on 5 years now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So San Francisco, nice move. I actually lived kind of close to East LA. So if I said like 223rd and Vermont, would you know where I was talking about?
23rd and Vermont reminds me of San Francisco.
223rd.
Oh, 223rd. I have no idea where that's at.
223rd in Vermont.
Nope.
So
isn't that down by like LAX?
Ish.
Okay.
Because down by LAX is, no, not really. But let's see. How else could I describe it? If you take the 110 south going towards Pedro. So yeah, it's right off the 110. That's where I lived. But
the before the 405.
Let's see. So if you take the 405 and the 110, you know where those meet?
Yep.
I'm about 2 exits south of that interchange. No, 3 exits south of that interchange on the 110 going south. Right. Okay. That's where I was. So
on today's episode,
we bore everybody with geography of LA.
we guide listeners through LA's freeways.
But all the LA people are going, I know that place. That's where it's affordable health care. So whenever affordable pet care. There's like 2 pet clinics on the corner of Vermont and 223rd. So that's what everybody knows. They don't know I live there, but you live by affordable pet care. Anyway, sorry, everybody that never lived in LA. So that's what part of East LA? So like somewhere on the blue line, I would imagine.
It's so I was born in Alhambra.
Oh, wow. Alhambra. That's kind of like the snooty version of East LA.
Yeah, back in the day, it used to be terrible. Echo Park, Monterey Park area.
Yeah,
So I was born in Alhambra, and then I ended up growing up in like Echo Park, and before it was cool and awesome to go to Echo Park.
Okay.
So I grew up
back in that day. It was kind of like a no-go zone at night. Is that what you're trying to say?
It was filled with gangs all day long.
Wow, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you grew up in that sort of environment then?
Oh yeah. I mean, it was pretty everyday life, I didn't know any different. You just kind of did it.
Wow. So let's get into that, because I know like from your bio, I want to get all up in that if you want, if you're cool with it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's 100%.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is like the good stuff for my show. I want to get into that. I know we're going to get to yoga. Don't worry about it. And you've been on a million podcasts. You talk about yoga all the time. We'll weave it in, but I really want to get the Danny story. Okay. So you got in trouble with all sorts of stuff when you were younger. So just walk me through it. So what was it like growing up in Echo Park in the bad part of LA?
It was less getting into trouble and more, working on survivor skills. So I had a father who was pretty absent. And then I had a mother who was an addict, and she was always, I guess she was an addict and a felon. She was always in and out of prison most of my life. And so, again, when you're a kid, you don't know that. You're just kind of, that's like your everyday life. But at about 16, I left home and pretty much just started living on the streets and, doing what I had to get by. So I did the typical, like, whatever you have to do. Like sometimes it was selling drugs, other times it was stealing things, other times it was.
You're just basically trying to eat, right? And stay warm.
That's exactly what it's exactly what it is.
Wow.
And that was a part of, my life, and for quite a few years until, about 18, 19 is when I was able to really start to sustain myself as an actual, like, not a decent human being. I shouldn't talk about myself like that, but
a functional
human being of society, of normal society. But it took a little bit to get there. I didn't have a skill set. I didn't have a school. I dropped out of high school.
Right.
People
don't really understand how big of a deal that is.
For sure.
I had a friend who was super smart, but he had like almost a clinical diagnosis of some sort of disorder that I forgot, but it basically was like, if I could be rude, I would say he was clinically an asshole. Okay, so not everybody has that excuse, right?
Right.
So he was really smart, but like if somebody pissed him off, he would like burn down the city. Okay, right? In spite, he was just super, and it was because of this condition that I think that's where that sort of stuff comes from. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was just a bad childhood. Who knows? But for whatever reason, he would go mad queen on anything and anybody. It didn't matter, right? He had no control over his hate when it came to like being wronged. So he was like basically an honor student through high school, and then somebody in high school pissed him off, and he quit. And he could have totally graduated. He just walked away, right? And then later on, he went and got his GED, thinking it's exactly the same, and it's not. Yeah, because it's a big difference. So did you have to deal with that too? Did you end up getting a GED or?
Later on, I was about 20 years old when I ended up doing that.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's rough, right?
I mean, it's hard, you know, it's rough.
Just applying for a job when you don't have a high school diploma is like, people just sort of like look at you like you're a criminal. It's like, oh, okay, well, interesting, right?
Yeah, and just, you know, not having like the basic skill sets in life.
That too. I mean, the piece of paper is one thing, but okay, all right. Talk a little bit about that. Like, what sorts of things weren't you prepared for before you got to 20? Just like holding down a job, showing up on time, those sorts of things, I'm guessing.
No, you know, like my survivor instincts were pretty spot on. You know, it's the stuff that affected it later on down in life, like not having, you know, an education and, you know, writing and things like that. You know, that kind of basic stuff that you need to know to get by, you know, to write a resume or to do whatever it is. You know, I didn't have necessarily that. So I always had to depend on just my life skills to get by.
I guess that makes sense. I can understand. Like you start going and looking for a job and they're like, okay, you need a resume, you need to fill out this application. And you're like, huh?
Yeah.
So you have to go learn how to, okay, wow. I
never
even thought of that. But did you also face that situation where you were like presented with this, I'm not going to get a decent job unless I get a GED? Is that kind of what motivated you to do that?
No, that never really came up. I actually just did it for myself. You know, I really just wanted to, you know, to do what I wanted to do for me.
Okay. All right. I can see that. So talk a little bit about, I know you kind of like, you had your own sort of like addiction situation going on too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what it was like, what that life was like. Cause to be honest with you, you know, I think we can get into this really deep, but I think everybody has to a greater or lesser degree that I could get addicted to X kind of situation. And some people just happen, you know, if it happens to you and you have that right mix of, say, like really hard to break addiction sort of brain chemistry, and you happen to find something like that is like amazing, say, I don't know what drug of choice here, cocaine, heroin, whatever hard drug you might want to be addicted to. You know, there's not a big difference. Say, I listened to this guy on one of, I think it was Tim Ferriss's podcast, and he does, he works with addicts in Vancouver. And he said he was equally addicted to buying CDs, classical music CDs. He had all of the symptoms as all the other addicts, but his addiction was socially acceptable.
Right.
Nobody's going to bust you for, you know, binging on CDs, right? Nobody cares. Right. So it's the way we treat these things is just so weird in my mind. It's like we haven't gotten over our own societal BS enough to the point where we can accept that that's just another disease. You know, it is. And it's, you know, it's not just addiction. It's all mental illness, more or less. It's like, it's the only thing that if you get cancer, people don't go, oh, you're one of those people. You got cancer, you know?
Right.
You know, it's like this big pile of judgment. So yeah. So sorry, I'm pontificating now, but go ahead and walk us through like what a day was like as an addict, and then maybe get into like how you got out of that situation.
Yeah. I mean, you know, there's every day is a little bit different, you know, it's just whether we all like to realize it or not, we all have, you know, trauma in one way, shape or form from our mothers and our fathers, you know,
for
sometimes
sure. Yes.
Trauma shows up in multiple ways, and it's not always a bad interaction, but too much of anything is not a good thing. And, when you're younger, let's say you're 6, 7 years old and you that traumatic thing happens to you, you're not equipped emotionally to hold on to any of that. You're not equipped emotionally to process any of that.
Right.
So that naturally stores itself into another way of, shame or whatever it is, that the basic emotions that you can feel is where that tends to get, stored, in my opinion. And, as for me, as I got to get older and life started to actually happen and things, came up and I had to process those things, I didn't have the skill set to process those things. So the best thing to do.
What was your mechanism then so that was, okay, you were about to say it. All right. Gotcha. Go ahead. Yep. Sorry, I interrupted.
So, the easiest thing to do was to numb it, and rather than feel and try to sit with it, because I didn't have the skill set to do so, I, got my hands on pretty much as much booze as I could.
Right.
And, as much cocaine as I could. And that was pretty much my everyday life for a long time. And, I started working at bars and nightclubs, and it just really started fueling the beast. I mean, it became, we talk about, or you talked about normalizing the CD, impulsive person. And just so that we're all aware, so the listeners are all aware, most people tend to have an addiction, whether they like to realize it or not. And that's not to say like you are an addict, but you can act in over intoxication in anything, and really anything. It could be in the amount of movies you watch, the amount of books that you read. Like, you can act in over intoxication in anything, food, whatever it is.
Yes.
And there's no shame in any of it. There's just awareness in it. That's the only thing. There should be no shame in any of it.
Right.
Drugs and alcohol tend to get a bigger, harder rap, but it's like anything else. The more that we normalize it, the more that we have a conversation about it, the easier these people will feel like they're connected and be able to help heal themselves. So, tying it back in, I pretty much just numbed for years because it was easier. It was easier than having to sit down and be like, what is actually happening with me inside? It was easier to, it was easier to drink the pain away versus saying, okay, I feel pain right now. Where is this stemming from? Oh, this is stemming from something that happened in my past. Oh, whoa, this is something that happened to me as a kid. Oh, whoa, I got to unpack this now.
Right.
No one wants to do that.
No. Yes, you're right.
No.
So basically, I think what happens is, and with me, it was booze, definitely booze, and food and TV. Those are sort of, and tobacco for a while too. And then, you're right. It's slowly but surely, after I retired from the Air Force, I one of the biggest consciousness awareness moments for me was when I decided to do massage school. Of all things. I'm an IT guy now, right? And I was just like, I want to do something completely fucking different. So massage school, right? But oh my gosh, it was just so I got to learn all about body awareness. Never knew that was even a thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I ended up having a yoga community after that too. There was I'm a retired Air Force guy, so there was a lot of Air Force bases have like these free classes that you can take. So there was 2 free yoga classes every week. And then later on, one of those converted into a strength training class, which was amazing. And I totally miss all of that. That was all in LA. But anyway, so I say all of that just because I learned so much about what's going on in the body. And like you said, it's like we deal with all of that. One of these guys, the question to him when he says like, okay, why is this person addicted, or why is this person have some sort of malformed behavior for coping? It's why the pain, right? Why is this pain there? And the answer is you don't know. You just feel it and do the thing. Right. And the thing could be buying CDs. It could be watching TV, eating too much pizza and drinking beer. It could be heroin and booze. It could be, fucking, it doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
The fact is like you're just trying to escape that feeling.
Right.
that make sense?
Right. Yep. 100%. Absolutely.
Wow. See there? Look at that. Okay. So then there was this moment or day or series of moments wherein yoga saved your life. So let's get into that because that sounds amazing.
I was 25 and I had a partner that had passed away.
Wow.
And it was the first, it was the first time I was actually aware of, somewhat of myself. And, I didn't take it so easy and I really went off the deep end on my addiction. And
so it really brought up a lot of stuff then.
100%. Yeah. Because of it, I ended up going on a pretty big rager. Let's call
rager. Okay.
Yeah.
Rager's worse than a binge. Okay.
Yeah. On a pretty big rager. And, when I came out of it, I basically I wrecked some things in the house and, I don't remember any of it. And it smashed a bunch of things and broke some things. And, my roommate at the time, who was, I believe, to this day, she's my guardian angel. She's not even like my best friend. She's like my sister at this. She's family.
Wow. Okay.
She basically was like, you know what, Danny, I can't live with you like this anymore. And I can't be around you if you're going to do this. And I was like, I don't even know what you expect me to do anymore. I have nothing left to live for, pretty much. And, she's like, do something, just do something. What ended up happening was I tried committing suicide and, I didn't really want to be around anymore. And, I didn't do so well at the suicide attempt.
If you don't mind me asking, because I did that too. So can you tell me about your chosen method? Because I think there's angels involved in this whole scenario too.
Yeah. I tried putting a plastic bag over my head and then duct tape around the bag.
Yeah. It's got a lot of escape routes. So it's a good method to choose if you want to live. So that's good.
Yeah.
So let me tell you what I did. I actually attempted twice. And the first time was like with too much no dose. So that doesn't work necessarily just because the dose wasn't big enough. But then my second attempt was rat poison. So I don't know if you've ever found rat poison in the store and broken up in the box, but there are these little chewable pellets for rats. So I mixed it into ice cream and then I ate it. And so then I didn't die and I woke up and I went to work and I had a really shitty day. Okay. Horrible. Rat poison hangover. Don't even try it. Anyway, had I done that differently, I would have not been around. So thankfully, I'm not a chemical engineer or a chemistry student. So
right.
And I woke up and I had some green looking poop and a really shitty day at work. And let me tell you though, that I want to get back to your story. So what happened to you? How did that play out?
What ended up happening was, after being found,
did they rush you to the emergency room?
No, I wasn't there yet. I think I'd made too much noise and alerted people and, anyway. So sitting down and talking with my roommate, I was, just broken and didn't really know what else to do or what else, where to go. And she was like, there's this yoga studio that opened up. And if you could, maybe start going to the yoga studio or something like that. And I had no money and I couldn't afford to move and I couldn't, I had no other really option. So I stayed and I started going to yoga and, I didn't really understand it. I didn't really get it. I just knew that I had to go there. And I knew that if I went there often enough, I couldn't drink as much because I had something to commit to and to do. So it would pull me away from, being able to go out and it worked for a bit. It gave me something, it gave me somewhere else to go. And it gave me a community to start to connect to.
So let me ask you this. Did it help alleviate some of that pain that we were talking about at all? Do you think?
I don't think yet. It
Not
did
yet.
give me, it did give me courage and strength to, start to connect to others.
Right.
And I think that, like what really gets lost in addiction is the opposite of addiction isn't stop. The opposite of addiction is connection.
Right.
And what really gets people is a place to feel safe and a place to call home and a place to normalize conversations like suicide and addiction issues.
Yeah.
And these are all things that we, as a society, we've decided that they're taboo and we can't talk about them. So let's shove them under the rug and not bring them to the surface, and let's make people feel bad about it.
Right. No,
and,
for sure.
Going to the yoga studio gave me a safe space to talk about it, to be myself, to let people know that I was going through a hard time, and not airing out my dirty laundry, but, to be real, to actually feel what I was feeling.
Right.
And then, that later on led down to some courage to, seek mental health, help. And that was a new concept for me, because you don't show weakness. You don't tell people that you have, things going on inside and whatnot. And that's another conversation that I try my hardest to normalize is mental health. It should be before flossing your teeth that you check into mental health.
I agree. Yes.
It is insane that we make it so inaccessible and so expensive to people. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me.
It should be part of your annual checkup.
100 it should be your biannual checkup,
or your
quarterly checkup. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And it needs to get a new name doesn't have any stigma on it anymore. And it should be for everybody. Everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Just a mental health checkup. I don't know how many times, but like as often as possible. Yes.
Yeah.
I did a degree, a bachelor's degree in psychology. And actually about the only thing I learned is I didn't want to work in psychology, just because it was all about taking people that were not well, to okay. Right. There was no discussion whatsoever to deal with everybody else, which is like a much larger percentage of the population who has an unsatisfactory level of okayness in my mind. How's that sound?
Right.
I think we're on the same page, right? Okay is not okay with me here. You know what I'm saying? Our okay is kind of crazy. This is like the kind of crazy that lets you hold down a 9-to-5 job. And we call that okay. And it's not okay. Anyway, sorry, I got on my soapbox a little bit. Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. So, talk a little bit about so basically you got some sort of mental health treatment. How did you end up falling in love with yoga to the point where you want to become a teacher?
I didn't necessarily want to become a teacher at first. So the way I started practicing yoga, and I eventually ended up quitting one of my bar jobs because it was an unhealthy situation. And
you didn't want to be there anymore.
Right. And then I went back to the yoga studio and was like, I can't really practice with you guys anymore. I can't.
I don't have any money. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And they were like, you can start scrubbing toilets for free yoga. And I did. I wasn't above. They had given me community and they had welcomed me, and I wasn't above scrubbing toilets to get free yoga and to stay connected.
That's awesome.
So
yeah,
I did that for about 9 months. And then eventually I got moved up to being the person that was in charge of the toilet scrubber. So I got to order like supplies and write little schedules.
All right.
Yeah.
You're moving up in the world.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then, kind of a little fast forward, there was this teacher training program that they had, and they all very kindly in a very passive way just pushed me into doing it. They were like, hey, there's this program, we don't really do the toilet scrubbing thing anymore. And, you can do this program and get free yoga for 3 months. And I kind of was resistant, at the start, and they were like, we're gifting this program to you. And I think that's when it kind of struck me, where I was like, they're doing something kind for me right now, and I'm going to step into that. And even then, while I was going through the process, I I wasn't really sure what I was doing and what was happening. And I just kind of was going through it. And then, you know, towards the end of it, they were like, okay, so, you know, we think that you should, you know, become a teacher, and this is why. And I had a few key, you know, players in the mix. And, I kind of just started teaching because it was a way to get free yoga, and
sure.
I still didn't understand. I didn't understand what it was doing to me, although it was doing something to me. But yeah, same what I said earlier. I just started seeking, you know, the mental health component, and
right.
you know, I was unpacking these layers, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, it was about 2 years into it where I had decided that I was sick and tired of bartending. And it was just the first thought of like, I knew I needed to stop bartending.
Right.
And I'd gone to a yoga conference, met some really cool teachers. And I ended up taking about 9 months off of drinking and drugs, and things got really clear. And then I went back to drinking again, and things started to get really rocky. And I just decided I needed to get out of San Diego before I killed myself or, you know, did something stupid again. And I moved to San Francisco, and, you know, there was a big yoga scene up here, and some of the people that were making it were up here. And there was a specific teacher who had a very similar story. He was a meth addict, and, you know, he was also a queer man. And, you know, he found his way out through yoga, and I came up to study from him and to get to know him. And, you know, after about a year and a half of being up here, maybe it was about a year and a half, 9 months, I decided that I was going to do this yoga thing full time. And I knew it was going to take a while to get there. So I was still bartending, and my drinking was in full effect. And this one day I woke up with the worst shame hangover of my life. And
I've had those. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I've decided that I was done, and I was going to get rid of the distractions until I could make this yoga thing, you know, happen full time. And,
right.
You know, I think it was last week. Here I am full time 4 years later. And this is my full on passion, and almost 5 years of not drinking or doing any cocaine or any of that, you know, and it's been pretty great. It's been a very, very, very challenging experience and a very rewarding experience. And I'm just glad that I get to do it every single day.
I think you really nailed it there. Thanks for sharing, by the way. That was an amazing, you know, very open and raw, kind of perfect for my show. So thanks. I appreciate that. But we hit on a thing that I want to sort of like touch on that sort of gets lost in this mix. Have you ever heard, do me a favor when we're done, if you haven't heard of this thing called the Rat Park Experience, or no, the Rat, you know, Park Experiment. That's what I want you to Google. I'll put a link in the show notes.
Okay.
So this is like this scientific study where they were studying addiction and isolation, loneliness at the same time. Those are the two components of the experiment. So they set up this thing they called the Rat Park, right? And in the first experiment, they had just the most boring, no stimulation kind of isolation for Rat, right? And he had unfettered access to heroin, okay? And that little guy would just become a junkie and just not want anything else other than that heroin button, right? Give me more, okay? And then in the other study, and then the other part of the study, they made the Rat Park, and that was the most social and stimulating environment, like the best place for rats to hang out and do their thing, just as rats, right? And they still gave them the heroin, right? And they were very much indifferent towards the heroin. They would be like, meh, you know, we can take it. We can, you know, it's kind of like a beer, right? It was like, maybe I'll have a beer, maybe I won't, right? Maybe I'll have some heroin, maybe I won't. So the idea there in that it wasn't the heroin necessarily, it was the isolation. Right?
Yeah.
So when you take all those other components of, you've got the childhood trauma, you've got the, I don't know what to do with this pain, and then you add in the final component of isolation. That is the magic recipe that just makes this whole thing so difficult to deal with. And that was like the aha moment. I was like, I got to get out of the house. I think we all go through these periods of isolation, you know, and it's not like the dark kind of, I just like quit my job and was screwing around at the house, but there's nobody around, you know, I'm age inappropriate retired.
Right.
You know, and that And that just creates this sort of like, there's not enough people around. So that's when I started getting into, I'm going to do yoga twice a week or maybe 3 times a week. Just any old reason to get out of the house and be around people. So if you're one of these solopreneur types that likes to work at home and you're listening, don't work at home. Go pay for a co-work space. Just so there's people around and you can interact, or be a yoga get a yoga family. I so miss my yoga family. Sorry, I had that yoga family back in LA. It was amazing, and I have to find it here. It's been 2 years since I was not quite, about 2 years, because I did do some yoga when I first got to Las Vegas. But I haven't really found my yoga family here in Vegas yet, so I still have to keep shopping. Anyway, as we wrap up, because we're getting close to the hour mark here, talk a little bit more about everything that you love about your practice and what you've got on offer at your website, DanniPomplun.com.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Danni Pomplun. We should just, every time we say it, we should say it a new way.
There you go. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So the practice, that I offer is it's very simple. It's all inclusive, so it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you look like, what color your skin is.
There's no levels, right? Everybody can show up.
It's all levels, and it's a very, there's 4 components that I like to put into every single class, and even to the community that I create. And one of them is strength. We're definitely we're signing up for a yoga class, and so we're going to work together. We're probably going to work pretty hard, and I think that there's a lot of good stuff that happens from that hard work. And then there's the smart part component about it. And I want to, you're in a classroom setting, and I want to teach you something, whether that's about your body or about yourself. I definitely want to communicate that there's a lesson happening.
Right. Okay.
And then there's the heart part where I encourage people to connect to themselves, to step away from the story, step away from the drama, step away from, the future and the past, and really just be in the right now moment.
Perfect.
And then the last part is community. It's the thing that got me through everything. And it's where I encourage people to make some friends around them. Although we get to come into this practice on our own individual mats, there's this unit feeling. We get to come together.
Yeah. That's the thing that you miss the most when you don't do it.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, so I try to keep it as open as possible, and
it sounds to me like you have like a fun, kind of like more fun. I mean, there's so many different kinds of yoga. So if you've only done yoga once and it was like one of those militaristic kind of yoga classes, they're not all like that.
No.
There's a lot of laughing in a lot of yoga places.
I am the king of dad jokes.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
So there's a lot of that happening. And I have tons of offerings on my website. I do trainings and I do retreats and workshops, and I travel around a lot and teach. And there's some way, shape, and form you can catch me on my online meditations or online classes, but there is a way to dial in if and when you are ready to dial in.
It sounds amazing. If you don't mind, I want to chat a little bit about what I miss about like my yoga family before we wrap up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, like I said, it was like, I think I was the youngest, and I'm 50 now. There was a group of young people that would sort of like, they were the active duty people. Either, they're like a military themselves, or maybe a military family member, like a spouse or a child that shows up for the class. But the core group, we were all retirees, right? So, and I was the youngest of the retirees. So that was sort of like the family that stayed, until I didn't. But one of the guys was like in his 90s. So, and his movement was so limited, he had to do most of the class in a chair. But I want to say this. If you make it to 90, right, you can and should probably fart liberally in yoga class. Because he did, and he got away with it because he's 90 or something, 90 something. It was hilarious. So we would all, and he was, hard of hearing too. So we're all giggling, and he's just like, letting fly. I mean, I wouldn't want to be next to him, but it just added something that anybody can do yoga if they just show up, I wanted to share that because I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. I mean, you should part liberally if you're 90 and in yoga.
You can and should.
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you so much for hanging out with me for about an hour. This has been a blast, and you shared a lot. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right. Hey, have a good one.
You too.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.